Welcome to the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As a leading manifestation advisor with a process that's, radically different from the old New Age model, mine is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and my energetic gifts. I created this podcast to help you expand your subconscious limiting beliefs about the potential of deserving the manifestations you're calling in. Therefore, you're tuning into this podcast series to show your subconscious that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, you've already started the process of manifesting it. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us our review, comment, and share it with your fellow manifester that's struggling or could really benefit from the information that you're about to learn.
Styling's about money management. It's about being resourceful, making stuff out of nothing. People write me personal things about this inanimate object, so we have this relationship, and it's kind of cool that you can have that kind of exchange with people. You should be able to do whatever it is that is your passion, and your people will find you, and then you work the math to make it sustainable. Always do it because you want it, or you love it, or you need it, or all three.
So today we're kicking off with another My Magnetic Story, Manifestations from the Community. Hello, fellow manifestors. I can't believe I'm about to type this, but I manifested my partner. I only say it like that because it's in caps. I've been doing Lacy's work and calling in a partner for 9 months now. I purchased Formula and Magnetism, Shadow, and Partnership. Highly recommend all, but Partnership was my favorite. It wasn't always easy to stick with, but I'm so glad I did. I failed a lot of tests and gave in to my ego more than I'd like to admit, but staying patient and dedicated got me through it all. This is the man of my dreams and my complete list. I can feel myself in alignment, and the universe is still giving me signs that this is the person for me. Huge thank you, Lacy and your team. Whether you're just starting, working through a test, or in the magic dark, I hope you stick with it because this shit works. So what I want to say about that is I think I manifested my first partner consciously using this formula 8 years ago. And then, of course, I went on to do it with Max, and that's when I knew this process was solidified. He came within 6 weeks, and I went through all of the things, the tests, the magic dark, expanders I had been going through in my prior relationship. So I just want to tell people as well that not only is this applicable for partnership and really easy to work through, but it's weirdly the exact same energetics you would use to call in a new community. If you're wanting new friends or like-minded community, or a new friend to fill a spot of an old friend. And of course, if you're calling in partnership, and you can find that right in the pathway, starting at $24.99 a month. Today, I want to talk about the trigger that allowing our lives to always be enjoyable can also have a lot of programming around it, that's laziness. And this isn't to be fully confused or compared to the intro that I did on rest, though they're very similar. So enjoyable, when you are living your life totally within, I'll say rather than enjoyable, but your authentic code, which you can find in Up Level and any of the 3 workshops for the rock bottom or next level. And when you start to delegate and get rid of anything that's not in your authentic code, you start to fill all of that open energetic space with manifestations you want that create joy in your life, that are the things that you want to be doing and spending your money on, making money off of. And therefore, life can become a flow. That's what we call next level. It's when you are enjoying a lot of your time. You're not having to settle or do things that don't serve you anymore, be around things that don't serve you anymore, work in things that don't serve you anymore. And this is magnetism. Why? Because you're getting so close to your totally whole, authentic, but most importantly, deserving self. There's a direct connection between enjoying your life and being magnetic. And I know that there's a lot of new age superstition that's like, just be positive. If you're positive all the time, things that you want will come your way. That's actually very confusing because it's not the energetic that's bringing things your way. Deservingness and worthiness, but deservingness speeds it up. What's bringing things your way is when it's integrated and projected from a subconscious level, meaning that you truly believe that from a subconscious level. So it's very different than being in the conscious state and just trying to be happy, positive, and enjoying your life, like a lot of, superstition teaches you. So the quickest way to get about this is obviously, I believe, either doing the daily reprogramming exercise to look at why you're still doing things that you don't enjoy. I think the fastest hack, though, to get through this is head over to anything and up level, whether you're in a rut, you're a rock bottom, or things are flowing pretty well, but you want to take it to the next level. That's going to get you into this direct energetic. And I want everybody who's already living your life in joy and happiness most of the time, do the daily reprogramming exercise around anything that comes up that makes you feel lazy about it. Hear my words. The more you can live in that space from a subconscious level that is truthful and being projected of worthiness and deservingness, the more that'll come to you. So we can let the laziness go. It no longer serves us. Welcome back to the Expanded Podcast. We have Agnes Baddoo here, who is a former stylist and now a designer, an accessories designer. And we're just going to pop right into it.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. I always forget to let people say that part. I'm like, I want to know more about you.
We'll pop in now.
Yeah, let's go into the first question that I like to ask everybody is, what is your cultural background and upbringing?
Okay. I am half Ghanaian and half, or however you would split it up, but my mom's family's from Jamaica and my grandfather's family's from Barbados. So Afro-Caribbean, born in New York City.
Wow.
So I'm a New Yorker.
You're the total New Yorker. I know we just had a really long conversation about the Upper West Side, how it relates to West Hollywood.
Yeah.
We got the whole thing. How was it growing up in New York? What was that like?
I loved it. Let's see, I grew up in New York, really in the 70s, 80s. And so it was from like the grimy to the yuppie zone. But, New York, you just get around, you have everything's accessible. I grew up on the Upper West Side. It was sort of residential and beautiful. And I grew up near Central Park West. So you get a lot of nature and you get like a really nice scale of that city feeling, but it's a neighborhood. So I enjoyed it tremendously. And I have still friends that I grew up with then. Like I have a childhood friend that we met in a tree in Central Park when we were little.
Wow.
And we're still friends to this day. And my dad still lives in the apartment I grew up in. And
that, I think, is such a luxury in its own to have that experience in New York City. Is that common that many people still have those places, those apartments that they grew up in?
I would say it depends. If you move around, then no. But a lot of, half of my friends, their parents are where they were when we grew up.
I'm like, all the movies are going through my mind. It's like all the Scorsese films. This is amazing.
Yeah, we were like in the sort of, I would say, like the Nora Ephron zone.
Wow.
Or like Green Card, or any of those sort of like Harry Met Sally. Those kind of movies are definitely Upper West Side.
Yeah.
Or Woody Allen.
Yeah, Woody Allen's what I think of too. When
Hannah and Her Sisters is like that kind of.
Oh, now I have all the questions. I'm like, did your parents stay together? Is your mom living there? What's going on?
My parents stayed together. My mom passed away in the mid-90s, quite young. She got multiple sclerosis.
So did she suffer for long too?
For a while, and then she didn't.
Yeah.
And so my dad lives there, and so they were together. So I grew up with that. And what else did you want to know? And
I want to know now. I'm going to just pivot. I have so many questions. How did each culture play into your upbringing on each side?
Well, okay. My earliest like socialization, like school situation, was a play group that I went to that was, it was a play group from the UN. It was called the International Play Group. So before I knew that it was a problem, I knew that everybody came from someplace else and that everybody was different. Like I knew that people dressed differently, ate differently, spoke differently. I knew like the flags where places were on like this children's atlas book that I had from Rand McNally. So I would say that being multicultural in a city like New York impressed me in the sense that I just understood that everybody was different. And that wasn't a problem for me. Like it had to be taught to me later that, these countries or these races or these nationalities have conflict with each other and they are preferred or not preferred in this context or not, like all that had to be broken down as your awareness grows, But what I knew before that was that, I had friends from Peru and Sweden and England and Japan and Norway.
As it should be.
From the get-go. Yeah. And so having my dad be from Ghana and then like my grandmother's family from Jamaica, my grandfather's family from Barbados, like all of that was normal, I guess.
Well, each of those culturally are so steeped in magic and mysticism. Did that play a role in your household growing up at all? Was anybody connected to it?
Not on the forefront, but I would say definitely on the intuitive level, on the like it would be acceptable to say like that doesn't feel right kind of thing, Yeah. And I know that when I was very little, if I didn't want to do something, like I think I could go like 2 to 3 times and then I wouldn't have to do it. Like starting with say food, like when I didn't, drink my milk or something like that, there was you can't leave the table until you whatever. And then when I tried 2 different very creative ways to leave the table without drinking my milk, my dad was like, she eats all her vegetables, I don't care. They trusted a certain amount of instinct in that way. And then in terms of my judgment, I think it was maybe honored in a certain kind of way. Not indulged, but definitely like they would respect it. They would see if there was some kind of reasoning, some kind of pattern reasoning and went like that.
Which I think is highly conscious for parenting. Even today, that's incredible that they were that way.
Yeah, I think my dad's super practical. So I think he would just watch patterns, I think, in his math science mind. It's like,
because tell us their professions, both of them.
So my dad, when I was little, he had several different interrelated careers. But when I was young, he was a consul general. So he was a diplomat. Wow. And he was the consul general from Ghana to the United States. And in that time and prior to that, he also was part of this organization called the African Students Alliance, I think was its official title. But it was an organization that brought African students to secondary and colleges. So they were the organization that worked with like the Kenyan students, Aerolift. So he was part of the organization that brought like Barack Obama's father and placed him in, I guess, the University of Hawaii. And,
incredible.
So that's what his background was.
Incredible.
At that time. I mean, when he came to the States, he was studying, I think, like pharmacology, but because he was here during the time of Ghana's independence, and Ghana was the first country in Africa to gain its independence, he got involved in a lot of other
all sorts of
things that unfolded in that time in the mid-50s and early 60s.
So right in it, right during such revolutionary times.
Yeah.
He was a part of it. Oh, that's incredible. What about your mom?
So my mom had always been involved in fashion in some way. And she, when I was young, worked at Bonwit Tellers.
What was that, a department store?
Bonwit Tellers was a department store, like on a level. There was only one, at least. There was a flagship. It's sort of like Bergdorf's.
Okay.
Bergdorf's, Neiman's, like that kind of place. And Bonwit's was near Tiffany's, like the next corner. So like when you see breakfast at Tiffany's, they walk by Bonwitz. It was a beautiful building in that area. And then it got torn down to build tower that has 45's name on the front, so where people protest now. And so it was that was like the beginning of the we don't like that person in New York City, because he tore down this beloved landmark on Fifth Avenue so she did Bonwitz, then Saks, and then Bergdorf's. And so she was buyer Bergdorf's, I guess.
Was she very chic?
She was very stylish. Both my parents are pretty stylish, or were.
And would you call her one of your first expanders that helped you move and pivot into styling?
Yes, and just pivot into all kinds of. My mom was definitely a expander and a manifester.
Oh, really? Tell us about it. Well, what were their signs?
Okay.
Because for everybody listening, they always want to know you're an Aries sun and then double Libra after that.
Yeah, Libra moon, Libra rising. My mom was a Leo and my dad is a Capricorn.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so, in-house introvert, extrovert.
Yes.
All, and really my mom was an extrovert and my dad is a very comfortable introvert who, as I got older, I realized, like at first when I was younger, I was like, he's such an introvert. But when I was older and I started to pay attention to who his friends were, I was like, he was an introvert that liked a lot of crazy. And when I went to Ghana with him after my mom passed and I met like his childhood friends, I realized that he could hold his center and he liked a lot of magic. He liked it. So I grew up in that kind of energy.
And what were her manifesting skills like?
They both exposed me to a lot of creative outlets really early on. So like I did from taking like sort of French playgroup lessons to starting guitar when I was 6, and they found me like the most amazing guitar teacher that also taught pottery.
What?
Like
this is incredible.
She was just a real New York City find, and I studied with her until I could teach myself, and she was one of my favorite people. And I spent a lot of time in museums and did like all kinds of art projects that the museums had. Like they had, like the Met had a studio workshop, and so did MoMA. And so like when I was little, I did a lot of that sort of stuff. And
you were exposed.
I was exposed.
That is incredible. You were so exposed. What a lucky, incredible childhood.
Arts and music were definitely things that were encouraged in my upbringing.
And siblings?
I have a younger brother.
Okay. And what's he all about?
He's a Scorpio.
Okay, yeah. So they got theirs, the Capricorn Scorpio and the Leo Aries.
Yeah.
Do you know your human design?
No, I do not.
Okay, good. And that's how we profile. We like cosmically profile around here.
I have yet to get to that.
Stay out of the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Next week I'll call you back.
Yeah. We're like, she's definitely a generator.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I will say that from listening to Jenna Zoe.
Yes.
I would say my first, if I'm going to guess.
What you resonate with, yeah.
I'm a manifestor generator.
Oh, these two are. Yeah.
I would definitely say that. Without even knowing too much about the specifics of the descriptions.
Yeah, you resonate with what it says.
I resonate with it, and I resonate from like the experiences that I have in terms of like how I've manifested whatever I've put my mind to in my own personal career, and then how I feel like, because I'm a connector, I feel like I can generate stuff. If I just take the definition at face value, I can generate stuff that I do not have to necessarily be involved in.
Yeah.
So
it just naturally unfolds.
Yeah, if I connect other people through relations that I have, then I feel like that got generated. So
yeah, there you go. I love this.
Generator.
Yeah.
From my own definition.
Well, I want to get into spirituality for you because I feel we have I feel like so many degrees of separation. And I think the very first time I met you was in Amanda's store in Silver Lake. And at the time you were doing the sprays, the room sprays, the atmosphere sprays, which were fantastic. So give me a little rundown about your what you've been into throughout the years.
Okay. So I'll just tell you how those sprays, I'll go back a little further. I'll go back even further. My mom was really into like health and beauty aids. Like pampering and baths and all that sort of stuff. So I grew up around that sort of, bath oils and scrubs and lotions and potions. And then as I got older, I got into wanting to make them. So I started to, shea butter and coconut oil and essential oils and stuff like that. And so I would make things for my friends. You know, sort of like college roommate time, like I'd make different lotions for people. And then I forget how I originally got into the sprays, but they were just a different way to create like this atmosphere that could shift your consciousness at the time. So I had been working at a friend of mine's shop here, and she had told me at the time, like I'd made the sprays, but I was making them to give to friends. And she's like, if you can standardize these, I'll sell them. So I really got down with my formula, and I like series of 3s. So I had one that I was giving everybody, but I decided to sort of make a series. So one was number 11, which was the first one, which was power.
I remember,
right? And so that one was meant to, it was a kind of neutral fragrance profile that was very sort of mint and woodsy and earthy and not too deeply floral, but it had some flower in it, but it just was something that would be like absolutely gender neutral.
Totally.
That would just hit you, and you'd have a certain kind of, and it was kind of meant to be kind of clearing and refreshing and kind of energizing and focused. And then 3 was manifest. And that one was definitely a more floral top note. It had geranium in it, but I always would mix the floral with something like either earthy or woodsy. So
masculine. That balance.
To balance it out so that it would be, you know, like men do, like, you know, people like flowers. So I wanted to keep all the flavor and the scent profiles gender neutral.
Amazing.
So that one had maybe some frankincense and a bunch of other woodsy things that kind of grounded it. And then the third one was 6, which was balance. And that one had cardamom and some other things. It was kind of spicy, resiny, sweet. And I did make a 4th one, which was 9, which is renew. And that was like rose and pink peppercorn and sandalwood and some
I
other
love
stuff,
that profile.
right? So
amazing.
So that's where that went.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. And that's what I was first selling at the Echo Park Crafts Fair when it was, I think, like in Rachel's backyard.
When it was like beta.
Really it was. It was, you know, like me and Wendy Polish had like I don't even think it was a table. It might have been like a bar cart. And
and she had her candles at the time.
She had candles and she had textiles because she was doing some silkscreen textiles at the time.
Because she's so creative as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had met originally at the aforementioned friend, Jamie Rosenthal, has this fantastic shop, Lost and Found. Which
is amazing.
Right? That's
I
like
love
all
it.
roads lead there. And I've known Jamie since college time. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So that's like another 0 degrees of separation.
Oh my God, everyone. You even know you were friends with my fiance's stepmom.
Yeah,
like when she
exactly. Yeah, I'm like a little Nexus Lexus of people.
You're a connector. Yeah. You know everybody. But I remember meeting you in there and I was like, wow, she has such an incredible aura. You're just so, how do I put it? Fresh was such a good feeling, like fresh and bright and beautiful. So I was really like, who is this? And I have to try her sprays. And then I know the bags came onto the scene not long after. So let's hear about styling into the sprays, into the bags, just for the people who are creatives, they're from New York potentially, or just looking to get into the creative field. Expand us.
Okay. So I'll go back. When I was in college, I majored in painting and printmaking. So I was an artist, and I wanted to travel in Europe. And so when I graduated, my parents were like, great, get a job. Yeah. So before I graduated, I made a list of like the top 10 places I would work if I could call up tomorrow and say like, I'll be there on Monday. And I didn't get into any of them. So I was temping that summer to save my money to go travel in Europe as soon as I gathered as much as I thought I needed. And by August, I got a letter from back when people wrote letters
It's
to
amazing.
respond, right?
Yeah.
In the 1900s and blank, 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 blank. So I got the letter from a job that I had applied for in May, and they were like, we're looking through our resumes, and would you like to come in for an interview? And that was for Elle magazine. And I ended up getting the job there for the publication director, who was one of the original founders of Elle.
Whoa.
He was like the original art director, and he'd come from France to launch the magazine and really shifted fashion in a huge way at that time. So I was his assistant. And so from that position, of course, I wasn't doing anything specifically creative, but I saw how the magazine worked, every last aspect of it, and I could sort of see who I would want to be within that world. And I knew I didn't really want to be actually in the art department. But, I just sort of went through it all. Everything had to go through me to get to him. So I got to work with I worked with anybody that had to do anything with the magazine. And what I liked was, having always liked fashion and known about fashion, I liked the freelance under contract fashion stylist. It was like very specific. It's like you got to do the stories, you got to travel, but you weren't caught up with who stole my Manolos in the closet. Like you had nothing to do with any of the in-office drama.
And you're creative.
But you have community and you get to travel. And
Did I mention that?
Yeah, I was like, you get to travel and you get community, but you're not caught up. It was like I was like, that's the combination. Because they were always happy in the office. Okay. Everyone was happy to see them and they were happy to come through. I worked there for a year, and then through that job, I was able to do like an internship at French Elle when I went to Paris. And then, of course, like being that 1 degree of separation people, and I got there, I met different people that were like 1 degree of separation from people I knew at different times in my life, and it kind of unfolded from that. And then I had other friends that were there at the same time, and then another friend was doing an internship at Condé Nast, but she too was an artist and really wasn't interested, and so she recommended me there. And so through working at Condé Nast, I started assisting different stylists, and was able to sort of stay in Paris for about 2.5 years, going from stylist to stylist.
You totally manifested all of this. You saw the expansion through being at the magazine and figuring out what you wanted. It's incredible. And you manifested Europe. You wanted to try. I mean, this is great.
So that's what happened. And then in that time, you could also sort of feel that the economy was bottoming out, and also that I was under the table. So like you're running out. That's why I sort of had to go in this rotation, because, people can't afford to pay you under the table too long, So I was rotating and it was getting a little stressful. So I came back to the States just about the same time that the shift switched from Paris to London. And so a lot of the people I was working with in both places started to turn up in New York. So that worked out fine. And so then I got into styling, and I was working with freelance stylists under contract, right? So I got to work with a stylist that was working with Steven Meisel when Franca Sozzani took over and like started that whole new era of Italian Vogue. And so I got to work with that crew of creatives and learn about how those magazines worked, and work with people that were working completely independently and just sending in the pictures. I was like, more of that, please.
Yeah, that sounds
like
great.
Even more specific. Like less, more creativity, less talk, more action. And then, you do that for a while, and then you start to plot, like, how are you going to grow in this situation?
Or scale and all of that.
Right. And so around that time, I had the opportunity to come to Los Angeles. And the second I got off the plane, I was like, I'm going to find a way to move here.
You loved it.
I really loved it. I liked the climate. I liked that it was a city in nature, which is, I'm a city girl, but I grew up by Central Park West. So I really did like being in nature, but I didn't necessarily want to live in the woods per se. And even when I, was in school, I went to school in a place that it was in a 5-college community. So it was like beautiful in the Valley of the Berkshires, but it was super culturally rich. It wasn't like fully isolated.
Yeah.
So I like that balance. And that's what Los Angeles was for me.
Okay, it felt metropolitan and with nature.
With nature.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like I can do my city stuff that I know how to do, but I can, have a garden or see, deer, or like I'm between the desert and the mountains and the beach. I liked all that. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of fashion per se. Here, there was the movie industry, but people shopped at the mall, and, celebrities they had some stylists, but they were still dressing themselves.
Really?
Yes. And if you go back, you'll know that they didn't consult anybody.
And this was in the 90s.
It was when I first came,
it
was in the late 80s. So
wow,
it was
okay, see.
So I looked at the landscape and I was like, oh, okay.
There's potential.
There's potential here, because also when you're starting to not assist and you're trying to figure out, okay, now I'm a stylist, who am I going to work with? I'm going to be like 5th in line to work with the people I used to assist for. And then certainly first in line with my peers that are graduating, like the photographers' assistants that are becoming photographers. But, I figured if I moved here, I'd be first in line to work with the people I used to work with, because there weren't stylists here that had editorial background. And I knew from being in New York that they were always looking for somebody to work with, because sometimes magazines couldn't afford to send somebody. So there weren't a lot of, I think Smashbox was only in Santa Monica at the time. There was like no Milk, Coyote, none of that. And people were still like buying and returning from the Beverly Center. And there wasn't really even a lot of, I think maybe Armani might have been the only showroom, like the only person that was, and even then it was for celebrities, not necessarily for editorial. So by the time so that took like a couple of years to figure out how I was going to do that, and to do more of my own work. And to do that, I worked, for free for magazines and sort of up and coming magazines. And, you get your tear sheets and you do your dues and you make your peer connections. And
I think this is so important for anybody listening, especially because I feel like many people fantasize about becoming a stylist. So it's so tantalizing, but it's also so important to hear, because something I suggest all the time, people are like, I want to pivot careers. And I'm like, you have to expand. You have to see to believe how everything works. So most often than not, get an internship or do things for free, and you'll learn it that quick,
and it's really important to understand that in almost anything that you want to get into, it's nice to know a little bit more about what that entails. It's like, by the time styling became super fashionable here, it's like, people thought that anyone that could put like one leg in a pant leg, they could style. And it's like, no, styling's about money management. It's about being resourceful. It's about making stuff out of nothing. It's about relationships.
Huge about relationships.
It's like you can't get that dress if somebody else wants that dress and they've got a better relationship. Or you can't fake that look if you don't know how to figure that out. Like if you don't know who's got like the good donations at the right, like there used to be this place called Cinema Glamour Shop in LA, which was the most amazing vintage shop, because it was benefited like the Motion Picture Health and Science Retirement Home. And so it was where the OGs from the
all the
like
good
just sort of
stuff
your
came
Ann
after.
Millers and like Aaron Spelling's custom jacket. It was like old school. That stuff was beautiful.
Yeah,
and you need to understand about like beautiful cuts and really well designed garments, and like look inside and know why something is better than something else, not just because it costs more.
Absolutely,
you have to know like high low. Like I'll spend $5 on that, but I won't spend $50 on it. I'll spend either $5 or $500. Like you have to know why you would do that. And so interning for people, getting jobs in things that are kind of adjacent related, so that you see the full ecosystem of how the money is spent and made and why something costs more. And all of that's important. And also just work ethic, like coming in early, being quiet with your eyes open, and like being available and being of service and not
and preemptive of what's possible. What can I do? What can I what can I bring to this? Yeah.
And not thinking that any one job, even if it doesn't seem related, like every part of it's important, because if it doesn't get done, the other part doesn't get done.
Completely.
So you have to be willing to
pick up the skills that you of a skill set you may not know that you'll need in the future of a job you thought you'd hate. Like it's all so connected.
It's really true. Like sorting socks has a benefit. You don't know what it is, but it has a benefit.
Completely.
And so, yeah.
And how did you pivot into the bags?
So, let's see. As I was sort of peaking out of styling, the money was getting less. Every aspect of it was just becoming more and more of a chore. I had always wanted to make something, and like from making sprays to making things throughout. So what happened specifically with, and at some point when I was styling, I actually did try and make bags, which was, somebody reminded me of that later when I ran into somebody that I had known from when I was a stylist. They're like, you're making bags. Great. I forgot that she worked for a leather person and I'd given her some bags to make samples of, before. But what happened was that I had this bag of my mom's that looked completely different than when she had it. And over the years, I had cut it down and reproportioned it, and it became too old to fix. And so I had it on my desk, and it became a catch-all for my bills and stuff I didn't want to deal with. So I'd sat down some January, around this time to do my bills. And then I looked at it and I was like, I need to make this bag.
Wow, I have to replicate.
I need to not be doing my bills.
Oh, good. You're like, I think I'm
gonna be a bag. I'm like, I'm gonna make today's the day. I'm gonna not do my taxes. I'm gonna figure
new start.
Exactly. Hold that thought. W-2 this. So I took the bag, and I mean the bag that I had was already different than the bag that she had. So I'd already played around with the shape, and I was like, I like this shape. I like the way this is. And so I went downtown to some leather source and I asked them about the leather. And then I asked if they knew who could make it. And they're like, oh, because the bag was a veggie tan, which is thicker than most handbags, And so he had recommended like checking out some equestrian center or something, or like a shoemaker.
Leather, to work leather,
right?
Yeah.
So then I didn't want to be in the garment district or in the fashion area. So I went sort of out of town, and I thought like, in that Santa Anita corridor, like where there's racetracks, there's going to be saddle repair and stuff like that.
So you went to the racetrack. That's incredible.
So like I went to where like there'd be like
horses, like equestrian.
I went to where there'd be horses and where there would be saddle repair people, where I know that they'd have the machines, but I wouldn't find other people doing what I was doing.
Exactly. I love that originality.
I'm competitive with myself.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in what other people are doing, but I also, because I'm not interested, I forget that other people are. So I try not to be around that. So I went and I found some saddle. I met a bunch of them, and some of them didn't seem that interested. And then this one guy was like, sure. Because I figured if that's what they're doing all day long, maybe I'd find one that would love to sort of, like on that crop rotation tip, like do something on a lark that was different. And so I found this guy who was interested in doing that. And so he sampled a couple of prototypes, and then I figured out how I liked it. And then he made me 8 samples, and just in time for the crafts fair.
Perfect. What year was that?
2013.
Perfect. Wow.
Right? So it was May 2013. I showed up. It was, it might have been the first year that the crafts fair was downtown opposite Apollos, like on Traction. And I remember showing up and showing them to Bea and Rachel, and they were like, yay.
So excited.
Yeah, it was super great. And so, I put them out that Saturday morning, and I sold them by noon.
Wow.
So the rest of the weekend I was selling sprays.
Wow.
And so from there, I then found a leather producer and then made a dye and made patterns. And then my friend Priscilla Woolworth had a online eco general store. And so she was probably my first wholesale account. And then this was still when, blogs were happening. So Lizzie Garrett had that blog.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I bet
right?
that blew it up overnight. What was
Pretty
it
much,
called?
the Tomboy Style.
Tomboy Style. Yeah.
It literally did. Between Lizzie and Priscilla, it was like exposure and press. And then I had my site and her site. So it was like wham, wham.
Yeah.
And then it just like snowballed from there. And what I did when I did the bags was I didn't want to be known as a like a lady bag designer. So I made the two sizes. Like I had sack 1, sack 2, and I think I did the key cases all at the same time. So when I launched the site, it was really more like leather goods.
Yeah, leather goods. And that's how it registers to me. Absolutely. Yeah. It's authentic that way.
So that's what I wanted to do. And I still had a styling gig.
That's really good for people to hear. I call them bridge jobs.
Yes.
You have to state your bridge job.
Yes, because I believed in what I was doing, but the thing is like my business was a baby and I had no intention of living off it. Like it needed to self-seed. I needed to be able to, you have to take risks when you're starting a business.
Like take credit lines.
Take credit lines, or you have to advance a certain amount.
Especially in this field.
There's you can't depend on it yet. Like you don't know how many wholesale accounts you're going to get. You don't know if you need wholesale accounts or want, like you don't know what it's going to be. So you can't like have your rent be depending on it. You don't know how it's going to be received. You might have gotten the impulse to do it and it might not have been the right time of year in the cycle for when people buy. Like you just have to see if there's a cycle. Like you don't even know.
And I think it's so important for people to hear too. If you're getting that download, if you're getting that yearning, that calling, and it's already a flow, you just keep throwing things against the wall until you hear otherwise or it really takes off. And you just got to try them.
And you also have to try them, but also not put so much pressure on them.
Yeah.
You have to let them go out into the universe in their own
like plants.
Steam. Exactly.
It takes the sun and the earth and the water to grow.
Exactly. And the roots go deep and then the branches spread out. And then as it gets stronger, it can bear more weight.
Absolutely.
So
it's and how long did that take you that you had to style until you could just go straight into the company?
I would say 2 years. I mean, I probably could have styled another year, but it unfolded that I didn't. And by the time I wasn't, I had also, so then I wasn't styling, but maybe I had 1 or 2 consulting jobs. So like I was phasing out of one thing and phasing into another thing so that the accounts were coming in and there were still blogs, but then there were things like One Kings Lane and Refinery 29. And like Domino had come back on the scene. And, so like there was a lot of things, there were different avenues for exposure that were growing at the same time as I was growing.
Great. So they could really help that process.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it because I think they're so beautiful. So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones.
You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
What has been your biggest rock bottom moment? Like crying on the floor, the world is ending, this is the hardest point in my life.
Let me think. Well, I mean, aside from like when my mom passed,
yeah,
that was definitely, that was life changing, like the full, like the notch in your tree of life kind of situation. I don't know if that was rock bottom because that had many different stages of processing.
Absolutely.
So it definitely, I wouldn't call it rock bottom, but it definitely, it put some kinks in my circuitry.
What would you say to the person? Because not everybody's gone through that experience yet. And obviously they vary in those experiences and relationships. But the ways that your life did alter, the insight that you got, or the wisdom, or the ways that you grew up and you got clear, are there tips or are there little sort of magic nuggets you took from that that you could impart on us that could help us that haven't gone through that yet?
I would say, well, that's when you really understand that you communicate with people in different realms, you know, where you can feel like you're talking to them, or you can be someplace and you can smell something or see something, aside from just like, oh, they really would have liked this, but you can have some serious experiences where you're actually sure that they are present.
Wow.
Or sure that they manifested some kind of exchange. Like, for example, even my mom gave me my business.
Really?
You know, like
totally.
if I go backwards, at the time I was just doing what unfolded. But when you think about the fact that she's encouraged me in many different creative ways my entire life. And so I was getting to a place where I was not liking the dynamic, like where I was in the cult, like all of that. You know, like I liked styling enough, but the joy of what it was not being reciprocated by the income and all that. So then there I am sitting there and I look up and there's this bag.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's like, that is definitely something. Like I didn't buy that. That was a bag that she had that, and even then I had changed it, but it was like that came to me because it came through her.
Yeah.
So whatever your upbringing and your faith is, it does exist that we communicate in ways we cannot describe.
Oh, 1,000%. And
so,
like I'm a reluctant medium in the sense that all of the women in my family were all visited by spirits and they love to attach to us. I personally am really, I am yet to fully embrace that.
Yeah, but you don't have to. You can just acknowledge it exists.
That's
like,
it. That's all you have to do. And
because,
in fact, at least it lessens the resistance.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because everyone has whatever relationship they want to have with them. But, and getting attached is a whole nother separate, you know, story. So like just acknowledging that is usually, it's enough.
Absolutely.
You know. So,
and what other ways has she played a role in your life since?
Since or just in general?
Just since, like that's really helped you stay the course and step
well, there's
into
things that my mom has told me when I was growing up that definitely influenced my outlook and probably influenced my what could be perceived as fearlessness, which to me is just like how I do things. But when I was very young and I was going to Brownies or something and I didn't want to go, she told me that I would probably meet somebody there that I knew or knew of, and that wherever I'd gone, I probably knew somebody. And she maybe noticed that already, but I hadn't paid attention to it. So when I went to Brownies, the other reluctant person in Brownies was my childhood friend, Claudia, who was the friend that I met in the tree.
Whoa.
You know, so we were like the grumpy brown people.
Yeah.
We were just
so for brownies.
You know, geez. You know, but then we were like, cool.
Yeah.
You know, like then we had a friend, you know, and then another friend was actually there too. So it, you know, and that's how my life has really, really always been. Like any
Kismet.
place I've ever gone where I thought I wouldn't know anybody, somebody would end up being like, you know, the neighbor of my upstairs neighbor's cousin that I met that one time they came to visit, you know, like just something, but somebody I genuinely liked.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. It was like, yes, I might know or know of them, but more than likely, I liked, you know, like we had some overlap that was positive.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a good takeaway, that wisdom from her that we can all take, where it's even when you're reluctant or you don't, there's probably a little bit of magic on the other side.
Exactly. There'll be something good there. Like you'll either confirm why you never want to do it.
Yeah. You'll learn a lesson.
Exactly. Yeah. And patience, tolerance, curiosity, or you'll find some one nugget. You know, and that also goes back to what we were talking about, like when you're assisting and you don't know why you should do something, just do it and do it well.
And do it well. Learn how to do it well. Trust me, it'll be a skill set in the long run that's going to benefit you.
I've recommended people that were not suited to doing the job that I hired them for because they did it so well.
Yeah.
You know, like you can give somebody a really good recommendation, like because they came on time, they had a great attitude, they did the work, like...
I think that's incredible. And that's a great way, that you make connections and relationships.
Exactly.
What is the most woo-woo thing you're into?
Alphabetically.
Yeah. You're like, where do I start? Yeah.
I do a lot of things that would be perceived as woo-woo from, you know...
mainstream culture.
Yeah, I mean, I love Kundalini yoga. And I know if I were talking to people that... they would find that really woo-woo, but I definitely resonate with the sound current and the breath work and the mantra, and I love the repeated simple movements that go on so long you want to leave. You know,
that you want to cry.
You're just what do you mean I got to do this for 11 minutes?
Even my sadhana every morning is like 3 minutes of heart. I'm so lazy. I'm like 3 minutes of cat-cow.
It's about consistency.
Totally.
You know, so like 3 minutes is, if you do it every day, it's, you know.
A lot. Yeah.
You know, it's consistency. So that's definitely one of my favorites. Every aspect of that I really like. And, you know, I respond to the elements. So like, I definitely like crystals and I definitely, I can get into a little candle magic. I would say and tarot readings for sure.
What are your gifts? Everybody has gifts. Yours are creative, but I mean, you probably have other great gifts as well.
I would say I'm a connector. Like I definitely can refer people to each other, and a lot of people that have gone on to do fruitful things. I think maybe even from like finding people places to stay, like, oh, I need to stay. Oh, I'll write everybody I know. I've got some friends coming to town. They need, you know. So I would say I'm a connector.
That's an incredible skill to have. And not many people have that one. But when you do, it's so lucky. It's a lucky one.
Thank you. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biggest shadow aspect that you've had to integrate in your life to feel whole? The part of you that you might have rejected in childhood because it wasn't cool or safe or beautiful or whatever, that you've had to really reconnect with and own to really make you whole in who you are.
Consistent follow through. You know, so the Aries child.
Which might just be an MG. One of their big things is they lose interest quickly and stuff.
Yeah, so that's where the Libra, there's like, I like a list, but I also, sometimes I lose interest in certain things. So what I learned through being in business and like when you're a stylist and I learned how to delegate. And I also learned like, it's like a recipe. It's like a party planning. It's something between party planning and cooking, where you delegate the zodiac skills and meet them out. So I like I do very well with having Virgos in my midst.
Yeah.
Because they like all the details I like in theory, and they really enjoy, like, they're tenacious in tracking them down. And I can be tenacious on a whim, but I can't consistently. It's not good for my psyche to stay in that place.
Yeah.
All the time. Like, it actually, that energy turns on itself. And for me, being like too meticulous, like, it can be like not mean spirited, but just can get like a little too petty.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's important, but I like all that information. So we work really well together because I can say all the things I want to know. And they're like, they've got that spreadsheet and the Excel sheets going, and they're like meeting it out and all these different, looking at it 3-dimensionally and tallying it. And I don't have the time to figure out how to have that language, but I like it. So learning some of my shortcomings and turning my disadvantages to advantages
huge
has been, I guess, would be whatever that shadow is like finding out what I'm not good at and getting the support for it and not like beating myself
and owning it, that it's okay. And now I can use the support. That's incredible.
And now I can spend my time doing what I'm good at and then let somebody else who's really good and enjoys those details. And all those details are important. Like, I need to know the answers to those things. It's not like I don't want to know the numbers. I just don't have, it doesn't come as easily to me to be tracking them down or maintaining it as often as I need to know them. It's really about the consistency for me. So I delegate when I'm not.
I think that's very valuable information for everybody to take, and that it's okay to do that. And that's huge. What about biggest heartbreak? On the lighter side.
Oh, God. I don't know.
Which can be with yourself, a friend, it could be anything.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, that's really, it's not to say that I haven't had any, but maybe the child buried them or something.
Totally. I mean, that's common. That's for sure common.
I would say, okay, so recently I was working on a project that I cast my nets for, and I sent it to people that I knew. And I didn't get the response back that I wanted. And within the time that it was like it was a double hitter. It was like, I'm inviting you to know about this, and I needed, this. And that really, it hurt me and it did my head in for a minute. Okay, so going back to some spiritual aspects and timing, I have noticed that, like, when I hit walls, the way it goes is like my momentum is going in this direction, and then it's not being received. And then I take to my bed.
Yeah, sure. Great place to process.
Yeah. I just go to sleep or something. And then often it's happened enough times that I realize that there's a reason for that. And then I wake up and then I have this another new idea. And then the things open like this. So in the last 6 months, I've had 2 different experiences where I've had, like, they were both sort of work related, but in my work, because I am attached to my work and it is me, they were personal disappointments. And in both cases, I took to my bed and within, I got up with whatever, and then say within 36 hours, shifted. And I got other responses that turned out to be the actual response that I needed. And the second one was a lot bigger, so I actually did consult a woo-woo psychic healer. Good. She helped me because I was really so caught up in it. She helped me with the landscape, and she confirmed my instincts. And she was like, no, this will happen. These people are intent. You might have to revisit them. They're not responding for this reason that you have either projected or imagined. Go back. Because sometimes when you put yourself out there, you think like, oh, well, don't they know I put myself out?
That I'm waiting. I'm just sitting here waiting.
And so then you realize, oh no, they have other things going on. Like they're thinking like, I'll get back to that. And then you just have to figure out how you're going to get, so that unfolded. And what ended up happening was, like, as she said, the slots the doors opened pretty much to the day.
Wow. Everyone's thinking right now, what's her name and where can we find her number?
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Should I tell you her name?
Oh, you're totally, this is the place if anybody wants to know.
Her name is Heather McCall.
And is that a site that people can Google?
Yes,
Heather
I should actually look it up.
We're giving her a shout out because she sounds
really,
accurate.
She was super helpful.
Yeah.
Really made it clear. She reinforced what I needed to know, and then
she made it rain. She said happened.
It happened when she said it was going to happen, and which was decidedly a long time from when I needed it to happen.
Wow.
But it happened and it was fine.
Great. Fantastic.
I think the heartbreaks come from getting caught up in the momentum of what you think's supposed to happen at the time.
Yeah.
So learning to recognize like some things aren't supposed to happen at the time, and it's okay, because I've already had enough experiences with that to know that it was a blessing that whatever I asked for didn't happen when it did, or that what I got was better than what I needed it rather than what I thought I wanted at the time.
Oh, you're just speaking my language. I love this all so much. There's always a gift wrapped up and there's always something better coming.
Exactly.
And that's such a great thing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's helpful for probably somebody listening right now.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I needed to hear that.
No can be yes.
Yes. Oh, huge.
I mean, no
will ultimately lead to yes in one way or another.
Exactly.
Of whatever it's supposed to be.
Exactly. It might not be right now. There's a lot of reasons why. But if you look back, you realize 9.9 times out of 10, you dodged some bullet at that time.
Rejection is protection.
Exactly. Is that the T-shirt next?
Yeah. No, we've actually managed to stay totally zero waste. The company is 100, which is so wild that we've scaled. But yeah, somebody out there, please, there's your T-shirt idea.
Exactly.
Biggest limiting inner child belief that held you back a lot in your life?
Let's see. Something like I can't. I mean, just something as simple as I don't know how, so I can't. You know, or making stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Making stuff and trading stuff and exchanging stuff and you know.
Well, what do we expect from the line right now? What's going on? Any new colorways?
So one thing that I'm really into right now is that I have the opportunity, when you make things, there's a lot of waste.
Yeah.
And so I've been accumulating all this waste. And so I've been spending extra production time taking all that waste and cutting all the components. So I've got like bins that are just tabs and straps and like that. And then I start to make canvas combinations that are like 3-offs or whatever we'll do with that. And then I'm making like smaller items like little coin purses and other little key cases, and just trying to to use as much every little square inch as possible.
That's incredible.
And being able to have also a greater price point, like a little entry price point.
Yeah.
And go from there. And then I'm also looking into vegan leather, like something that's not from the animal, to see what I can do in that aspect for people that like the design and like the durability, but won't go there.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I want to see what I can find that works in my design.
Yeah, that works well. Yeah, and holds up the same texture and everything.
Because that's the other thing is like I make a quality product that's meant to last. Like my mom's bag was over 40 years old.
Incredible.
And if it had been cared for and used a lot, it probably, it's still being used in the corner. It's like
it's still collecting bills.
It's still collecting bills. I have it, but I can't like take it out into the world. But I'm making something that's meant to last, a long time. So I consider that, economical and resourceful, and I'm considerate about. People work for their money no matter how they ever got it. And it's an energetic exchange, and I get a lot of stories about where people, how they got it, who gave it to them, like if they saved for it or where they took it. I mean, people write me personal things about this inanimate object. So we have this relationship, and it's kind of cool.
It's amazing.
That you can have that kind of exchange with people over thing.
A bag.
It's
incredible. I mean, we were, Instagramming and I was like, I've got to actually get that. It's the perfect carry-on where you can put the you can do such a carry-all with that bag. It's so fantastic.
And like the large one, the sack too, it fits in the overhead. It stands up perfectly. So no matter how packed it is, you can
shove it in there.
You can shove it in and it'll stay upright.
Because it's a great overnight bag. It's an incredible bag for all of your work. It's just really a carry-all. It's incredible.
Thank you. Form and function.
And totally. And then also the, what do we call it? The sling. How do I say it properly?
It's a belt sack.
Belt sack. Tell us about that.
So everything comes from things I need or want. And so at first I made the crossbody as a hands-free. And then I wanted something even smaller. So I made the belt sack so that you could wear it around your waist, or you could wear it like a bandolero. But also you can take the belt out and just have it as a small clutch.
Amazing.
So I like these sort of multifunctional things. And the coin purse fits in there, and the key case fits in there, and then it fits into there's just like a bag and a bag and a bag and a bag and a bag.
It.
And so then, you can go hands, and it's got like a slot that's near you, so you can keep, like your Metro card or your driver's license or your boarding pass. You just want to keep everything really close to your person so that you don't have to think about it. And the same like with the crossbodies, like you want I made the strap so it didn't dangle too far down your thigh.
Yeah.
So that like it was always near your arm. Yeah. Like I try this stuff out and it's like, does it work for me?
Incredible.
And the same with like the sacks. Because I spent a lot of time in New York, like I find that the canvas and leather combinations or the softer leathers work better in a city where you carry more, whereas the heavier leathers or boxy ones are easier when you're in and out of your car and you're not carrying it that far and you're not on a subway. So I have the opportunity to sort of test walk.
Yeah, because you have both lifestyles. I love them. They're so beautiful. I'm so proud of everything you've created. We're so grateful to have you here. Are there any words you would like to impart onto somebody who is thinking about like this particular entrepreneurial avenue or styling or creating their own of anything?
Work your way backwards. Like, what's the why? And so if you love it, you know that there'll be at least, 10 other people that love it. And if you're working within your means, then that will be its own profit. And you go from there. So just start with what you love and you will find your people. And then you go from there.
I used to say, people would consult me sometimes of like, what should I write? Like if I'm starting a blog, what should I do to be successful? And I remember that my brother asked me once, because he's really into video games and things like that. And I told him, Kellen, if your biggest obsession is a coin, collection, do that because you'll find 1 million people into a coin collection. So I love that advice.
Whatever is your passion, you'll find it. And, a quick little side note, I used to write for these guidebooks. A friend of mine started in Portland, actually. They were called the Eat Shop Guides, and they were to highlight 45 of the most interesting places to eat and shop that were independently owned.
Were they tiny little journals?
They were square, and when they first started, they flipped, and they'd have photographed like 5 pictures, and then they were not reviews. Okay. They were like sort of like they would start with some random story that didn't really have anything to do with the thing, that evoked something about the thing, and then there was like a list of things. So if you were in it, it was a recommendation. It wasn't like a judgy book. Yeah. But the idea was to support independent businesses. So like if you had like vintage thread spools or something, and that was your business, people that were into it could find it. And that's the idea. Like you should be able to do whatever it is that is your passion, and your people will find you. And then you work the math to make it sustainable. But beyond that, there's somebody for everybody. And, but always do it because you want it or you love it or you need it or all three. Not because you think
It's going to make you popular, famous, rich, any of that.
Like that shouldn't be the top reason, I don't think.
No, those are bonuses that come once you find your thing. I believe that too. And I love the little note about within your means. I've always been like that. I'm not huge into debt, taking credit. Like I'm just really, I mean, to each their own, but you really can create something out of nothing. And even when I started this brand, it was literally with like negative in my account, nothing, pulling resources. And I think that you're just such a testament to that as well. Not that it was nothing, but you really worked within your means and grew and scale and had your bridge job and did it within what was plausible for you. So I think, thank you for being our expander today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Oh, we're so grateful. Well, wishing everybody a beautiful day and weekend because they come out on Fridays.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for having me, Lacy.
You're so welcome.
Super fun.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.